Okay, so today we're going to talk about simple interest and compound interest. And our goal is to always make money and to save money. So when we talk about people who loan money, they want to make money on loaning that, so they charge what we call an interest. And the interest is going to depend on what type of loan it is and what your credit score is. So the better your credit score, the better interest rate you will get. When people who are borrowing money, they want to save money. So you want to find a loan with a low interest rate. So I gave the example of getting a new car. I don't want to have a high interest rate. So I told the dealership the interest rate that I wanted, and they were able to find that for me. You can also earn money when you deposit money in the bank. They will give you an interest on that money, and that'll increase your balance. It's not a very big interest, but it's better than nothing. So when we talk about interest, that's the money that is paid for the use of other money. So again, you get an interest when you give the bank money for them to use when it's in your account, and then you have to pay an interest when you borrow money. The word principal, not talking about school principal, we're talking about the amount of money that's either deposited or borrowed. So remember, this word deposit means that you put the money into the bank. So here's the formula for simple interest. I'm not that big on just giving you the formula, because if you really just understand what's happening, you should be able to solve these problems. So let's just take a look at this. So simple interest is interest that is earned or paid only on the principal amount. So here's our formula. This stands for interest. It's going to equal, the P is for your principal, the R is for your rate, and the T is for time. Now, the most important thing to remember is that the time needs to be in years. So if I said half of a year, it would be 0.5. And your rate needs to be a decimal. If you're going to be given a percent, so you need to change that percent into a decimal so you can multiply it. Now, again, the rate is something that's going to be changing depending on the loan. So our annual interest rate is the percent of the principal earned or paid per year. Hence the word annual, meaning a year. Again, that's going to vary. Now, when I put money in the bank, the balance of my account, where's my cursor? The balance is going to be the amount that I deposited plus the interest I get. If I was borrowing money, it would be the amount that I borrowed plus the interest. So this balance would keep going up and up if I didn't make any payments. So that's why it's really important to make sure you make your payments on time, so that your balance will continue to go down if it's on a credit card or a car loan. So go ahead and write this example down and pause the screen, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to look at is you need to identify what your principal is. So you deposit $500. This is going to be your principal. Into a savings account that pays a simple interest rate of 3%. So again, my rate is 3%, but remember I have to change that to a decimal. So a percent, if I'm looking at the alphabet, I'm going from a percent to a decimal, so I'm going to move left. So 3%, I'm going to go 1, 2. So my decimal is going to be 300ths. Makes sense, because that's the percent. 3 over 100 would be 300ths as a decimal. And then my time is going to be 2. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply that and do it 2 at a time. You can multiply the 2 by this, or it doesn't really matter which order, because of the commutative property multiplication. I can multiply in any order. So I'm just going to do the first 2. 0015. I have 2 numbers behind the decimal. I need to have 2 numbers behind the decimal. So it's going to be 15 times 2. So my interest over the 2 years will be $30. Okay, so again, identifying what your principal is, changing your percent to a decimal, and then making sure your time is in years. So here's another example, and we've got to pay attention to the wording of the problem. You borrow $900 from your aunt to purchase your first car. So obviously it's a new car, or it's a used car, because the new cars are much more expensive. She decides to charge you an annual interest rate of 5%. What will be the balance you owe after 2 years? So let's say you're not able to make payments for a while, so you want to find out what your balance is going to be. So the first thing I need to do is find my interest. My principal is $900. My rate is 5%, but remember 5% is the same as 0.05. Remember, the bird has 2 wings, so I need to move it over twice. And then times it by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do the first 2, so it's 900 times 0.05, 0045. I have 2 numbers behind the decimal. I need 2 numbers behind the decimal. Okay, so it's going to be 45. So my interest is going to be $90. But the question is asking me what the balance is going to be. So I have to add the $90 to my original amount. So my balance is your principal amount plus your interest. So my balance is now $990. So again, you have to be careful and make sure you're actually answering the question that is being asked. Okay, so again, ask questions and make sure that you're changing your percent to the proper decimal. Make sure that your time is in years. Make sure you're answering the actual questions, if it's just asking for your interest amount, or is it asking you for what your new balance will be. And you'll do great. See you in class.